Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 87 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin. That's Kevin.
Colin, I have to say, this non-alcoholic beer and steamed frozen vegetables I'm eating and drinking taste pretty good. You know why?
Why?
They taste of empty carbs without alcohol and of sweet, sweet vindication.
Yes, Kevin, many of the predictions that you've been having throughout this entire Crossbell duology episodes that I've not been able to confirm nor deny, many of them have come true. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that Kevin is a man of discipline. He is a man of rigor. That's why he is drinking a non-alcoholic beer as we're recording this at 4:30. One might note, it is before 5 p.m. But now that I've been working with special ed kids, my day starts at 7:15. So I am drinking a real fucking beer because I need one.
You know who also needs special attention?
Ooh, Kevin.
The city of Crossville, because let me tell you what, they are led by a demagogue, an insane demagogue.
Some of his actions are needlessly inflammatory. Like this war with Erebonia did not have to happen.
We don't start with the war, though. We start with a thrilling rendition of ballet.
So why don't we tell our audience how we're going to handle this episode? Normally, folks, when we do chapter episodes, first we start talking about the side quests, then we talk a bit about the main plot. We split it up by days. Kevin and I realized that we didn't really remember much of the side quests after having done them, uh, but the main plot of chapter 4 is so riveting that that's just what we want to talk about. We just want to talk about the main plot of chapter 4, but it's been a few weeks. Kevin beat this, what, last week? I beat this earlier in the week, like 2 days ago, but I had a gap. But we found a magnificent write-up on autrans.blogspot.com that is writing up the plot of chapter 4 on the basis of a very old translation of the game, mind you. But the details, they're still going to be right there. So we're going to be reading through this summary and talking about our feelings and thoughts about the plot beat by beat. This will probably take more than one episode. It will probably take two, but we're going to just go through so that we can make sure we do everything in detail. That sound good to you, Kevin?
Yeah, there's so much here. There's so much we talk about in this chapter, but Colin, also, there's a lot that we recontextualize, at least for me, Azure, Zero, the previous two games, the so much of what I thought I knew has been given a new perspective as we enter the final stages of the crossbell duology. We don't have that much more left.
No, now that we have fragments and we have chapter 5. Now I will tell you, chapter 5 is fucking long. It is so long. So don't think you can just do it in a couple of days. Shall we begin reading this plot summary?
Yeah, we begin with the performance of Golden Sun, Silver Moon, where Sully stands in for Risha Mao. Now, there's something that I just thought of. I would be surprised if that was the case, but we have a ballet in a very politically sensitive moment.
Mhm.
Do you know what this brought to mind?
Um, you could be thinking about Greek tragedy. You could be thinking about Shakespeare in the Park during election years.
I thought a bit about Greek tragedy, but I also thought more about Swan Lake during the abortive coup in Moscow against Gorbachev in August 1990 that Yeltsin diffused and put him on the map. The only reason is that they put the ballet Swan Lake on repeat, the coup plotters, the instigators. There's nothing to suggest there's any connection between the two here. I just thought how ballet, we do not think of it usually as a political type of theater. We don't think of theater for the most part as political, but here theater and politics intersect. Richemont is political, an assassin. Here, Constellation takes what is meant to be a performance of the ballet that is really tied into Crossbell's sense of self-worth. They got Ark and Ciel to perform and crashes the party, so to speak.
I mean, so to speak. Risha Mao is attacked by Bloody Shirley, who is dropping a chandelier on Ilya and Sully, and Ilya throws herself underneath to protect Sully in ways that makes those wounds look nearly fatal. She's brought to the hospital, but there are some pretty serious wounds. You're saying that she should have done that?
Yes, I think that actions have consequences. This should be a consequence that we're getting to the end game of the duology, and I think we need some bitter to go along with the sweet. And Ilya giving her life for Sully would be bitter.
Hmm. I do definitely agree that a bit of tragedy in a high stakes moment like this is a good thing. So I told the audience that we will be reading this plot summary, and we have not read the plot summary at all. So we should do that. So, as we've been discussing, Ilya dashes in to push Sully away from harm, but gets heavily crushed under the dropping chandelier. In addition, Red Constellation troops storm into the hall and light the place ablaze, causing the audience to run for their lives. Amid the confusion, Risha, who lost herself in rage, faces off against a highly entertained Shirley. So there they're having a sword fight. We assume it kind of you know, fades to black. Though I swear I remember seeing a scene with Risha and Shirley fighting in the air when I first played it. That wasn't there when I played it this time. So I might have just been making shit up as I'm wont to do. But it is interesting. It's not just targeting, the main performers. Red Constellation is trying to terrorize the people inside the theater by creating this fire. There's a message being sent. What message is being sent? You think you know in the beginning that Erebonia is terrorizing Crossbell. Later, we find out that Red Constellation is not affiliated with Erebonia right now. So then, what kind of message is being sent? That's up for us to decide. Kevin, what did you think about this opening of chapter 4? This is the first scene that we see.
I admit, surprised. I thought Crossbell burning I was anticipating fires, but for some reason, I don't know why, I was not thinking Red Constellation would still be in the city. I thought it would be set some ablaze and get out. This is a much more, they want to spread terror and fear. That seems to be what their goal is, not anything. Well, terror and fear is a strategic goal, it's a political goal, but it's the randomness or the indiscriminate nature that seems to be the goal to make crossbellians afraid. And I think they succeed.
Oh, they definitely succeed. And we're going to see more in how they succeed in the next part. But I love this scene because it brings, like, there's a reason why the game had been building up Sully and Ilya. And it's because of this moment. It's because we need to feel the shock when Ilya shoves Sully out of the way and has the chandelier fall on her. But also, this scene is why I think the quest that we had in, what was it, chapter 2, where Shirley meets Risha for the first time. At the moment, like that looks like, okay, okay. Shirley's following us, helping us out with the cat, and she sees Lark and Ciel, and maybe Risha recognizes her. But this is also Shirley scouting out Ark and Ciel. It's how she realizes that Risha is Yin. It's how she knows where to get the sword. It's how she knows how to get Red Constellation into the place. It's all because of that moment. And I find this kind of like going back to earlier moments and realizing they were way more significant than they seemed to be one of the best things about Trails into Azure.
It happens a lot in this game, in the duology, in Kiseki as a whole, the delayed realization, the interconnectedness. I remember thinking, why is this cat quest a main quest? I was
Right.
not angry. You know my thoughts on cats. I love them. But I knew there was something going on. I was not sure what. It took two chapters, several months, dozens of hours of gameplay, but we got it.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of very delayed payoff works so well when it's becomes so obvious only when you pass that moment of realization.
But see, and we talked about this a lot, and we should move on soon. But that is how you construct a good plot. That's how you have a good plot twist, in which once you look back, you realize that you had actually been seeing steps that were required to make all of this stuff make sense. Nothing is actually coming out of the blue here, at least here. There's going to be moments, I'm sure, where we can talk about do they come out of the blue or not. But like I've been, as a point of comparison, I've been watching The Acolyte, and it finished up yesterday, and it is one of the most poorly written pieces of material that I've ever seen because it treats its characters and its plot points as then this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and well, won't you know it, that happens. And there's very little things that actually connect one moment to the other, where you don't actually get to experience the world. Trails is a great example of how you do it right. And so I just want to once again express my appreciation for the high quality of writing that this game has. There's a reason why this game is my favorite in the series.
And I'm starting to see why.
All right, let's move on. With the strike on Arkansas as a start, Red Constellation begins trampling on all areas of Crossbell City. Several people, like Fran and Raymond, hold themselves up inside the police department, but right before they are able to seek shelter underground, they become enveloped in an explosion as the entrance shutters blast open. The Orcus Tower, which is being defended by Arios and Dudley, is also engulfed in a sea of fire at the hands of a large group of Jaegers. Furthermore, Demon Vald creates havoc in the downtown area, destroying buildings left and right. Upon seeing the Saber Vipers, he sends them flying without hesitation. Then, just before he strikes again, Abbas and Ashley, the woman from uh, the not requisites, the smuggling place. Abbas and Ashley yell at him to stop, and against Demon Wald's intimidation, to show no fear and display their will to fight. Furiously, Wald comes launching his attack. So after we have this scene in Arkham CL, we're seeing the wider impact of this invasion in the police department, at Orcus Tower, in the downtown area. Like Crossbell is being destroyed. Uh, and the ones that are able to fight back are Arios and Dudley, Abbas, and Ashley. Kevin, what did you think about these couple of scenes? Do you think that they were executed well? Did you learn anything from them? What's your take?
Well, I looked at these scenes and I realized what we don't see is many instruments of the crossbow state. There doesn't seem to be any garrisons of the defense force, soon to be called the Guardian Force, within Crossbelt itself. The police are very spread out. It's left to private actors to deal with it as they can. Crossbelt state institutions have completely buckled, for the most part, under Red Constellation. And it's amazing we have this severe blow to the political structure and then the very intensive political transformations that come right after the impotence, I guess you would call it, the impotence of the state is revealed in such patheticness. Who rescues it downtown? Private actors. Where do we see Arios and Dudley at essentially the new Capitol Tower? That's basically it. It's the dissolution of the social bonds. But Frostbell itself, the bonds are dissolved and then reconstitute very quickly. And I find that just fascinating.
I mean, to be fair to the state institutions, um the CGF are explicitly supposed to be outside of the city. And they were just fighting the Red Constellation right before this happened. In fact, we're kind of with them as we're coming into the city. And the SSS do end up fighting, and the police are fighting. I mean, Dudley is right there with Arios. Not saying that the police are winning, because they're not, but this is a surprise attack, and the state is doing what it can.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of how Crossbell does not is not allowed or chooses not to deploy the CGF within the capital city. Whether that's a good idea or not, I will
Well, even if
refrain
it
from
was,
commenting.
it's not like the CGF are not involved in this attack. They had just fought the Red Constellation in the previous chapter. Like, we're with them as we're responding to this news.
It's a very foolish military force that does not keep a reserve to deal with the unexpected.
Okay, well, maybe we should make you mayor of Crossbell next.
Maybe we should.
So then, at the same time, Sigmund, leader of the Red Constellation, leads his men to attack the waterfront area, which is the harbor district, and forces his way into the Highway Trade Company. Lau and other Highway members fight back, but are easily defeated by Sigmund in one swing. Leaving Lau to his men, Sigmund barges into the branch manager's office. Sao shows no fear and greets Sigmund, asking just who is Red Constellation's contractor right now. Sigmund is impressed by Sao's perceptiveness, but doesn't answer the question, merely dealing out a slash attack. Sao dodges it as he breaks out the window and disappears just like that. So now we see the Red Constellation. They're taking out Highway, or at least they're trying to. We need to remember that Red Constellation, Highway, they have this long-standing rivalry that had been buried during the trade conference, but clearly still exists. And the Red Constellation destroy that building. Like, it is gone.
You know, Sigmund is impressed at Sal's perceptiveness by asking who was the contractor, and he knows who it is. But Colin, but Colin. I mean, really? It there's like a couple guesses. You can knock out one off the bat, and if you spend maybe two brain cells thinking about it, you're gonna get the answer. You could not get at the right answer only if your brain had no folding whatsoever, just totally smooth.
Kevin, are you telling me that you went through this scene and said, "Oh yeah, clearly they're being hired by Crossbell."
Erebonia.
But they're not hired by Erebonia.
Oh, just
That's the whole point.
out the past 45 seconds, Colin.
No, that's staying in, Kevin.
No.
No, I mean, I think
Um,
it makes sense for
shut
Sao
up,
to
Colin.
assume that it's Erebonia, because I think everybody assumes at this point it's Erebonia. Sao is perceptive enough to realize that maybe it isn't Erebonia. Um, but I would not call Sao stupid. He's not like Lloyd realizing that Ellie is a McDowell 2 chapters into the first game.
You know, we're supposed to be impressed by Sal's perceptiveness, but the only way you wouldn't realize it was Crossbell who had hired the Red Constellation is if your brain is totally smooth.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I do think that this scene does a pretty good job at demonstrating the might Sigmund has. We'd seen it a couple of times, like even when we first meet him, but they're really building him up as like this really, really powerful force that the SSS is going to have to contend with.
I have a question with him as the example, but also elsewhere that maybe you can answer
Yeah.
having played more of the games.
Hmm.
In the combat, when it's not gamified, I guess that's the word, you're 50 feet away, I'm Sigmund. You pull out a gun and shoot me. Like, how do I manage to survive that? Or not? How do I cross the distance with my sword?
Well, I guess with some of these really powerful characters like Arios, uh, you could see them maybe stopping the bullet with their sword as it's coming in and then swiftly moving forward. Sigmund himself has armor, so if you're not shooting directly at his face, then that could work. Also, as we in the United States had seen pretty recently, split second movements of the head can be the difference between life and death. So, maybe that could happen.
There's always a tension in when guns and swords mix, how anyone with a sword can close the distance, be faster than a bullet, have the reactions, reflexes to block a bullet. And I know, I'm aware that there's a long tradition of, say, the in East Asian folk culture across a lot of the nations of really advanced martial arts being able to have superhuman feats, and this draws on that. So it seems it's just something I guess I have to accept, turn my brain off for that part.
No, it is. I mean, and we saw this as well with the last chapter of Zero, where like Dudley and Sergey and the police force are running around the entirety of Crossbell shooting, and yet they never hit anybody. Nobody ever hits nobody, you know? Even though they're like sitting there going bang, 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 bang. They're like stormtroopers, but in anime form. And I think we
And they
just have to.
should.
They should what?
I want to see random civilians dying from that.
That would definitely make the game have an M rating, which I'm fine with, but would probably hurt their already lackluster sales.
And I
And then do
saw
you
on Reddit today that I think it said no Kiseki sold 1.2 million copies.
the whole series?
And there was a post on the subreddit that was on my front page feed.
Right, but what I'm saying is that do you mean so Sen no Kiseki is Trails of Cold Steel? Do you mean
You know,
Trails of Cold Steel or the series Trails of Cold Steel?
um, said no Kiseki 4.
Yeah, I mean 1.2 million for I mean it's not high budget, but it's not low budget neither. And I mean I'm guessing sales of that game will go down because it's the fourth in a series. Nisa tried to say it was a great place to start, which was bullshit, but we've talked about that. In any case, we can agree that these men do not have marksmen. I do think that if we ever had a policeman in these games kill a civilian by accident, um, and they did not immediately turn it into a way to talk about the dangers of the cops, the internet would explode, and I don't particularly need that.
Only one thing explodes here.
Right, crossbell.
I was gonna say the IBC.
Does the IBC explode?
Now who's the smooth brain,
Well,
Colin?
it's right there in the plot summary. We're going to have to see. In the face of Sigmund's overwhelming strength, the group. Wait, I missed a paragraph. Upon arriving at the harbor, the group first surveys their surroundings to confirm the current situation. After seeing the Highway Trading Company in shambles and releasing the Crossbow News Agency from Jaegers, the SSS rushes towards the IBC building as instructed. However, after running up the slope, they come face to face with Sigmund, who stands in their way. Seeing him there, they question about Red Constellation's motive behind attacking the city and the identity of their contractor, to which Sigmund maintains his usual no comment stance. Sigmund challenges Randy and the others to battle as he overflows with immense fighting spirit. I want to ask you how you did in that fight because I fully intended to do well, but I didn't, and then I just let the game continue.
I saw on NeoSeeker there was a guide. Make Lloyd a dodge tank, keep everyone else far away, and you could last to 3 minutes. Get one DP, I think, get him to 50% health, get another DP, and so forth. Well, that plan, as many plans do, Colin, that plan did not survive contact with the enemy. I died very quickly, and I hit continue instead of retry.
Mhm. Like, I like the idea of rewarding you with extra DP for stuff like that, while still maintaining like the fact that he's this powerful does, I think, like show you this dude's a big deal. You are no match for him. But having already missed out on additional DP earlier in the game, I'm like, do I really care about this extra 2 DP? Nah. And so then I would just continue. But I mean, that's also a
I
personal thing.
I appreciate how the game makes clear Sigmund is above your pay grade and you almost certainly can't do much of anything against him. It's clear. What I don't like is fights that look normal, so you try to win, you use a lot of maybe rare, irreplaceable items, and
Mhm.
they turn out to be unwinnable anyway. That does not feel like the game's being honest with the player. Here, I felt the game was honest.
Yeah, like here the game pretty much says you can't beat him. Do the best you can. When you
Yeah.
fight Arios at the end of the chapter, it does not tell you that
No.
until you die. In any case, in the
Spoilers, we fight Oreos.
well, I mean, this is about chapter 4. People should be willing to hear spoilers on that. We have gotten some Twitter feedback that a guy does not like how we keep spoiling Cold Steel 1, which I apologized for. We can't really go back and fix that. It's been we're 87 episodes in, but we're very close to Cold Steel. But I guess we should try to keep. Maybe we can have like a section at the end of each Cold Steel 1 episode in which it's like, here's what Kevin missed the first time because you have played that game. But maybe we can
Yes.
like try to keep it partitioned out. We'll talk about how to do that.
Yes.
Okay, so in the face of Sigmund's overwhelming strength, the group fights back with everything they have. However, Sigmund doesn't break a sweat, and looking down at the group kneeling down on their knees, he declares, "Too bad, looks like time's up." In that next instant, the IBC building is blown up and consumed by raging fire. Sigmund leaps onto the red aircraft coming from behind. Also aboard the aircraft are Shirley and Wald, and together they leave Crossbell City behind. But of course, it's not just any old red aircraft. It's an Ouroboros ship that we recognize from the Sky Games.
Has anyone died in the IBC explosion?
I don't think so. At least not anybody that we know that is specifically mentioned.
Which, again, I would have loved.
Yeah,
It just feels sanitation.
I think that a lot of like once in the moment, the sack feels like a really huge deal, and it is.
It
But given
is.
the fact that we go to the hospital later and everybody we know that had been quote unquote critically injured is alive, kind of takes the sting out of it.
I've said on a number of occasions, it feels like in the Kiseki series, we don't have narrative follow through of accidents, woundings, even death to create tension and depth. Look at Ilya. I think in most other series, she would die. Here, the game goes to a point and then very carefully does not go over the barrier. It's kind of weird. It really is.
To be fair, right here, Ilya is still in critical condition in the hospital. She's not like Fran, where it's pretty clear she's going to be alive. Do you think Ilya is going to survive?
Wow, Ilya's in critical condition. Um, I do, if only because, like I've said, the game is not going to follow through. I'm being kind of bratty. This is the Brat Summer per Charlie XCX's new album. So yeah,
God, I
the
hate
game,
Twitter. All over the place, I see bitches talking about it's a brat summer. Like, can't we just have speak normally?
on the neoliberal subreddit daily thread.
This world's going to hell, and I'm keeping all that in the episode. So okay, so
So
you
yeah,
play.
so I don't think Ilya will die.
Okay. Well, this is something that I will not spoil. At the same time as like they're all leaving, Arian Road and Campanella overlook the streets illuminated by flames from the rooftop of the Times department store. In contrast to Campanella's excitement, Arian Road is expressionless. Although one-sided acts of violence is against her style, she comments that war is merciless by nature and silently watches over the burning Crossbell City. At that moment, Campanella receives a call, and it looks like Novartis is looking for him. Campanella entrusts the duty of overseeing the project to Arian Road and goes to see Novartis. So, Kevin, we've seen Arian Road a few times. We've seen her right when Risha was revealed to be Yin. We've seen her in Luva Monogatari. What are your thoughts on Arian Road so far?
I like her comment how war is merciless by nature, because that's something that someone who has experienced a lot of war, that kind of feeling. But normally, Colin, this sentiment would be expressed by someone who has seen too much of war, who does not want to fight. For the some, I think tension, if I can use that word, if you agree with it, that Aryan Road supports the society, but that does not surprise me. They have a lot of frustrated idealists, I guess you would call them, but someone who fights a lot, who seems to be very clear eyed about the cost and nature of war and does it anyway. I think it's interesting. I think it makes her worse than Campanella. morally
Well,
speaking.
I think,
Someone who is
why do you say that Aryan Road is doing this?
no, not she's not doing the bombing, the fight, the destruction of the city.
Right.
But someone who is clear-eyed and there enough to understand war is merciless by nature and then does things to increase war, who is clearly not childishly excited by combat, by destruction, by war, but does it anyway, you're a worse person if you understand the costs, as opposed to Campanella, who I'm not sure is entirely operating under the same parameters of reality as everyone else.
I think that you might be reading too much into certain things. So something that we need to remember is that Ouroboros is not the only actor present here. It's Red Constellation that is
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
doing all of the damage. We learn later that Red Constellation is being hired by Dieter Croy, who is not a member of Ouroboros. He is cooperating with Ouroboros, to be sure, but it's not at all evident that it's Aryan Road or Campanella that has decided to take this course of action. And Aryan Road, elsewhere in that scene, if I remember correctly, but certainly elsewhere in the game, talks about carrying out the Grandmaster's will, right? It's one of those distinctions between enforcers and the Angues that the Angues are bound to the Grandmaster while the enforcers are they're free to do whatever they want. And so, I mean, here I could see, Aryan Road is this stoic, doesn't really like what she's seeing, but believes that the Grand Master has a higher calling. For whatever reason she's following the Grand Master, she's putting that ideal above everything else. So that's why she is watching on. But it's not like she's actively participating or even approving of the method.
yeah. And about the involvement of the society as a whole, I liked it in Crossbell 1 and with the parts of 2 where this is not some big plan by the society. It's there's other actors with their own agendas on the continent. And I know that Dieter Croy is not part of, but he is working with the society. I would have liked it if it was just him, just his mania.
But what I do like is that Ouroboros clearly has its own agenda that like it's coordinating with Dieter Croy. In order it's a mutually beneficial partnership, which I think is way more realistic than other things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so inside the SSS building, which has turned into a temporary shelter, Sergei explains to the citizens gathered that the armed mercenaries have all retreated. Kia expresses her worry, but Sergei tells her Lloyd and the others all have gotten stronger, right after we just gotten our asses kicked, and prays together with her for their safety. Leaving Sergei, who is busy trying to get in contact with all sides, Kea heads up to the second floor in a small run. As her body is enveloped in a mysterious blue light, Kea looks out the window and mutters, "No matter what, looks like this is the best choice." Her enigma sounds when the blue light disappears, and Kea tells the person on the other side of the phone, "I've made my decision." You had texted me at this point that she's probably talking to Maria Bell. And I think it's pretty clear that she was, given how she appears at the end of the chapter.
I have to say I was right about this. And that the seed was planted with her conversation that happened off screen, mostly off screen, at the end of the intermission as they're leaving Mishi Island. And I said Maria Bell looks super sus. And you know what, Colin? I was right.
Yes, you
She is
were.
super sus.
She is so sus. She's got villain cleavage now.
I wonder what did she say in that first meeting? How much did she explain?
I'm not going to comment.
Will we learn more in the last part of the game?
I'm not going to comment. No, I mean like that's one of the things when it comes to games like this is that I can't tell you what we do or do not learn because part of uncovering mysteries is the mystery of when do we find that out. I mean, I've already told you how there's still some shit that we still don't know, which it kind of ruins the mystery of that. But like after 12 games, you still have to admit that we don't know what the Grandmaster is doing. Um, but with this, I don't think that I should comment.
Okay, fine, fine, fine. I mean, you won't comment about something there's only one chapter left for the game for the
Yeah, that means we'll
duology.
learn
No,
about it a
I get
month
that.
from now.
No, I get that. It's fine. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Well, good news. You're not my
I
parent.
will
I
say,
don't give a shit.
I will say though, that this really shows why children should not have their own phones.
And plus, we don't even think the Enigmas have apps and stuff. It's just a normal ass telephone that allows you to cast magic. Could you imagine if Kia had Instagram?
Mm, she would not be addicted to it. I think it's pretty clear that Ellie would try to conceal a massive over reliance on Instagram.
I think what would happen is not that Kia would be addicted to Instagram per se, but she's so cute and everybody loves her that eventually the police department is going to say, like, you know what would be a good fundraising drive for the police? Let's make Kia into an Instagram influencer. And then she, just like how some people have accounts for their dogs that make money, there'll be an account for Kia. And every day there'll be pictures of Kia being adorable, and she'll never notice how she's being exploited, but it will raise a ton of money. And then one day she won't want to take pictures anymore. But the police will make her take photos, and the SSS will make her take photos because now that's their entire budget. And then everything is just going to go to hell.
This got super weird, and I beg you to cut it.
I'm not. I love it when
Colin,
I get it.
Colin,
Yeah.
I would strongly recommend you cut the segment about forcibly taking pictures of a child.
Well, it's Instagram, Kevin. It's not, you're the one making it weird. I will decide tomorrow. But speaking of the results of people's actions, 1 week after Red Constellation's raid on Crossbell City, since the IBC building acts as the actual economic center of the Zamurian continent, its destruction has begun to cause disturbances in the neighboring countries. However, thanks to IBC acting president Maria Bell's thorough countermeasures, the situation is gradually coming under control. In addition, due to the raid, the local referendum to gather citizen opinions on independence has been delayed and will be held 3 days later. Inside the SSS building, Knowles sees that the restoration work across Bell City is on the right track, and so she makes her decision, known to everybody, that once the day's work is done, she's going to head back to the Crossbell Guardian Force. Lloyd and the rest feel a tinge of loneliness, but can only accept Noel's decision considering how much damage the Guardian Force has suffered. Afterwards, Noel tells a saddened Kia, "I'll come visit with Fran," and then falls silent for a while. Falling silent always indicates future knowledge. Fran has suffered serious injury during the attack on the CPD, and even though her operation at St. Ursula is a success and she's maintained consciousness, it'll take some time before she can be discharged from the hospital. So, Kevin, obviously at the end of the chapter, we see that Noel has become part of the part of the Defense Force or whatever the hell it's called, and is actually the one who arrests us at the end of the chapter. How much do you think she knew at that point?
I can't imagine she knew that much. I she's okay, obviously, with arresting the SSS, with Oreos and Dita being weird and mega sus. If she knew all of that and didn't say anything, that would feel like such a betrayal that they should not readily forgive her. I'm sure they will because consequences are not lasting in the Kiseki universe, but
They're not.
no. Gameplay wise, the game is paring down the add-ons until you get to the core four, so it seems.
Oh yeah, because we don't have Wazi basically at all this chapter.
No. Did
One
that
thing,
impact how you played?
um, the Wazi absence a little bit because I use him instead of Tio, but I'm pretty used to using Tio after the last game, so it didn't really feel that different.
Who was your when you fight? What is your lineup?
My lineup is normally Lloyd, Randy, Ellie, and Wazi. And then when Wazi's gone, I put in Tio. I don't give a shit about Fran. I mean, not Fran, Noel.
Um, Interesting. I love Noel. I use Lloyd, Randy, Ellie, Noel.
So I want to bring in some real world comparisons because the transformation, not necessarily real comparisons, but just thinking through things logically a bit. The transformation of the CGF and the police into the Crossbell Guardian Force is very sudden. It's basically um, right after Dieter Croy becomes the president, or even before that, but after the referendum and the independence is declared. It is incredibly sudden, and
Yeah.
yet everybody has their uniforms.
Yes.
Uh, we know in the real world that takes time to get the orders in, to deliver, to get everybody's sizes, to deliver the garments to the new soldiers. You have to deal with the fallout of anybody who decides that they will not agree to the merger, either depending on the situation, either severance or murder. Um, the soldiers need to be informed of this, but normally the top brass is informed of it first because there's a lot of logistics being applied here, and we've seen Sonia be behind Dieter during the declaration of him being the president, which means
Yeah.
that she had to know about it beforehand. I do wonder if Noel had been told about this before and that she knew that sudden changes were happening.
If so, and I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but this blind obedience to authority when something that you know is wrong, and I think she knows what she's doing is wrong,
Question:
maybe at her deep core, but she, what?
Why is the Crossbell Guardian Force wrong?
I meant more investing the SSS in the tower.
But you can't know that that's going to happen until the SSX actually invade the tower, which is not guaranteed.
Oh, she did it, and she was fine with it, it seems.
Sure, but I'm talking about like she does seem a little bit saddened with this. And I think this line takes it well. Afterward, Noel tells us, "Sad and Kia, I'll come visit," and falls silent for a while. Every time in a JRPG, a character has the ellipses or says, "Oh, it's nothing," dot 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 with a face change. Like there's more to that than going on, right? So to me, this is clearly the sign that she
Yes.
knows what's
Yes.
about to happen. Whether she knows about Dieter Croy becoming president or if it's just the merger, she knows that changes will be happening. Um, so, question number one: is it morally wrong to merge the police and the CGF into one unified chain of command?
Yes.
Why?
Um, the military, as we've seen time and again across the world, across the centuries, is not trained for de-escalation to handle civilians.
Okay, but
It's a specialized.
now they have policemen who can do that.
Blurring the police and the military is bad because they can't do the jobs of the other, and the military is almost always larger. And I think that's the case here based on what little that we see. Sending in the military for law enforcement almost never ends well.
Unless it's a huge crisis situation. I mean, for example, in Haiti, that place is in complete anarchy that Kenya has military troops there to act as peacekeepers. I mean, I'm not sure that it's going well, but clearly something is needed more than police.
Okay, but I don't think the state planned on when they announced the merger. Hey, what if we collapse? Like,
I mean, I don't necessarily think they're thinking, what if we collapse? But I also don't think that this is like saying, okay, now the police and the CGF are exactly the same. They're unified under one chain of command, but you can still have different branches. You can have the police branch and the military branch.
so which branch is Nolan?
No, as a member of the SSS, is part of the police branch, but when she transfers back to the CGF, she'd be part of the military branch.
And She arrested the SSS,
Yes,
which is a law enforcement activity.
that is a good point. But you could also make the case that delicto, in flagrante delicto, the SSS are committing treason
Hmm.
by attacking the Secretary of Defense.
Hmm. Maybe. Sounds like you're licking boots.
Sounds like I'm a bootlicker. One other question that I will ask when we get to it in the plot, but I think that there's complexities in this situation. Okay, let me can skip past this part about how they go and to the Saint Ursula stuff. Da 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 da. Um, okay, so Lord and the others quickly head out into the city, take care of support requests, which we've forgotten what they are. I mean, there is some good stuff about community building and helping out in downtown and stuff like that. To be fair, they hear that the crossbell bell in the central square have been taken away by the Red Constellation, so that's like kind of symbolic. Um, I'm just trying to see if there's anything important in the hospital. And I don't think there's much of note in the hospital. I mean, everybody's doing well. Um, Sully wants to find Risha, but she's fucking Yin, so she's hard to find. There's an optional quest in which you can help Professor Seelan get medical supplies from the airport, which you can fail if you literally do what you've been doing the entire game and doing what the game tells you to do. So that quest pissed me off. But what we do next is we get a call from Yona. Yona's asking help to go through Geofront C block, which is linked to Orcus Tower, because there's a terminal there that we'll find out has a huge amount of data that is related to Ouroboros, and it kind of like shows the SSS just how involved Ouroboros is in everything. But what's really important is the next day, the Crossbell Declaration of Independence. Kevin, question for you. We've been recording for almost an hour. Not quite an hour yet, but almost an hour. Is there a good stopping point you want us to do, or do you want us to just plow through?
I think we should discuss the cross-bell declaration and then end once the immediate discussion on the declaration
Okay.
has ended.
Okay. Okay. So 2 days after Noel's departure from the SSS, Crossbell City holds its local referendum to gather citizen opinions on independence. Voter turnout is over 90%, which is insane, by the way. Like 90%, I would think that there's something wrong happening with that election. But okay. Small communities, people can be
I mean, given what we know,
yeah, I mean, maybe there was shenanigans. We're not really sure. But according to the results
that
that
would be the least of his sins.
yeah, right. Like I can forgive that. The whole destroying Crossbell in order to get there is a little bit weirder. But anyway, voter turnout is over 90%. And according to the results of the day, over 70% are in favor of becoming an independent nation. Which, frankly, after being attacked like that and seeing how strapped by Calvard and Arabonia Crossbell has become, they were already kind of wanted to be an independent nation. I could see how in that moment 70% are in favor of the referendum.
But
It did. Go on.
as we learn in the chapter, when people are voting yes, they were not all voting for the same thing in their mind. And I really enjoyed that because it shows how voters project so many different things on the same electoral system, on the same ballot question. We talked to one voter who said, I don't like all this. I want my vote was independent, but not the way it's happening here. It's
Right. I mean,
this
think
constellation.
about the Brexit vote, right? A lot of people voted
Yeah,
for Brexit with different ideas of what Brexit would be like.
independence means independence. Brexit means Brexit, but there's a plethora of meanings in those very short terms that's captured here in a very explicit way. And I think that is to the credit of the game.
I mean, there's different ways of carrying out independence. Let's say Crossbell declares independence and then immediately sends ambassadors to a bunch of different countries and tries to maintain like, don't worry, we're not going to destroy the economy of the entire continent. We can give you favored nation status, maybe make some concessions to keep their independence. That's one way of doing it. Well, let's see how Dieter Croy did it. Gathered inside the SSS building, Lloyd and the others are at a loss about the sudden situation in Crossbell after reading the Crossbell Times Extra. Under Dieter's leadership, Crossbell received acknowledgement of independence from the other countries using rather forceful methods. Sergei is yet to return since going to the police department in the early morning because he found details regarding the Crossbell National Defense Force, as mentioned in the declaration, is still unknown. This is where he finds out now he's part of it. Furthermore, the IBC froze all of the country's assets in both Erebonia and Calvard, which makes them declare that they will resort to military power if necessary. So let's repeat: this small ass little village of a country decides, okay, not only are we declaring independence, we're also going to steal all of the money from Erebonia and Calvard, and then hope they don't do anything about it. If there's ever been a just war on Erebonia's part to invade Crossbell, Dieter handed to them on a silver platter.
This insane brinkmanship. I think I texted you at first. This is actually not a terrible way to secure independence. And like an hour later, I said, never mind. I thought about it more. He's insane. Because if you're Irabonia or Calvert, you cannot let this precedent become a precedent by literally any means whatsoever. You have to show forcibly this is a terrible idea. And to be honest, they were much more restrained than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I mean, they sent multiple messages. They did not resort to invasion right away. The only way that Crossbow could pull this off is if they had a secret nuclear bomb that they would be willing to use against Erebonia, which, granted, as we'll talk about in the next
They
episode, they do.
kind of do.
So
This is
that I will
like
say
if
that's
you're a normal citizen,
if you're a normal citizen, you don't know about how Kea can just make things not appear anymore. So I would shit my pants.
yes,
But that's
it's
not it.
insane.
That this isn't even the last thing Dieter does. As the group discusses the newspaper's content, Tia notices that Wazzy hasn't shown up since the morning. Tio tells her he has some personal business to take care of. At that moment, Cecile comes running into the SSS with a flustered face. According to her, Arios came late last night to the hospital and took Shizuna away after taking care of discharge procedures. While the group is perplexed at Arios' motive, they receive a call from reporter Grace. She tells them that Dieter had been inaugurated as the first Crossbell president. So, to repeat, they voted for a referendum of independence. They got the referendum of independence, but the office of president of Crossbell does not exist. And this is a country with a tradition of free and fair elections. It might make sense for the Constitution to appoint Dieter as a caretaker president to oversee a free and fair election for the next president. That makes sense. That is not what happened. Dieter steps in, takes control, appoints Arios as Secretary of Defense, and he makes other changes. But like he's making big moves and quickly without having the consent of the governed. Now, granted, he probably does have the consent of the governed in a real sense. I don't think that many people are saying Dieter shouldn't be president, but this is clearly an authoritarian move, uh, disguising itself as a means of we need to protect what we have now so that we can then have real elections later. What did you think
I
about
think the
Kevin?
I thought the rhetoric that he used fit the aspiring dictator cloaked in democratic facades handbook perfectly. He's talking about Crossbell's history to temporary measure. This felt like you could see the speech given in a recent centralization of power, like in Hungary, what have you. It felt very true to life. So props to the writers for that.
Oh,
One
definitely.
question I have for you So he became the new president. How certain are we, do you think, that the new diet saw their seats transfer, become parliament, whatever it is? Does he have a legislative body to work with? Is it just him for the moment?
I don't think that we know. I mean, if we think about it, all of the real stuff that he has done, at least foreign policy wise, has been done without the consent of the legislature. Think about it.
No.
Freezing the assets was not a crossbell move. It was an IBC move, which he controls absolutely. The diplomacy stuff, yeah, that's a crossbell thing, but doesn't need parliament for that. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some kind of recognition that the diet still matters because you can't just throw away all the notables immediately. You know, McDowell would be a pretty strong rallying cry if Dieter
Yeah.
didn't make some effort to like bring him into the system. But I don't think we've seen much of that. The only scene we see with McDowell is him being like, "Oh my God, what did you do?" But it's only been like a day, so we haven't really seen much of him governing.
No, we have not. And there's, like I said, it's the areas where the executive traditionally has a lot of unrestrained or not much restrained power. But that he's choosing to highlight this, and he didn't talk about, don't worry, we have a parliament as well, or the new diet, so on and so on, sends a pretty clear message.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, Dieter is the strong man. He's the one who's going to protect us. With the help of some other popular people like Arios McLean, who everybody knows and thinks is the most capable guy, and yada yada yada. Um, it's not a bad authoritarian takeover, at least right now.
No, it's not. This is a very good way of cementing power for yourself.
And Kevin, I think that this is a good place to end part one of our coverage of chapter four.
Tune in next time as we delve into the new independent state of Crossbell.
We're going to see what things Lloyd learns, who's on whose side, uh, and we will revisit Kevin's complete and utter vindication on a number of important points.
Yes, cannot wait for that. Chapter 4, absolutely loved it. It's a great chapter. Look at how much we discussed without that much playtime. Most of the previous things we talked about occur in the first 30 minutes of actually sitting down to play the game. Most of the chapter, time wise, is yet to come.
Yeah, I mean, day one we skipped over a lot because there's
You're
interesting
right.
stuff,
You're
but
right.
then there's a lot of boring shit in between. And then this is the beginning of day two. Day two has got a lot of interesting plot stuff because there's only like one normal side quest, which is kill a monster, and then there's a Nielsen quest, which like is okay. But really, this is the meat of the potato. So I'm looking forward to next week.
Cannot wait. Until then, I'm Kevin. That's Colin.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye bye.